panel discussion today about our criminal justice system. I think in our society, a lot of us are finally really ready to discuss this issue and the challenges that face us regarding our incarceration system. I'd like to hit you with just a few statistics from the NAACP Criminal Justice Fact Sheet, and they're pretty disturbing. First of all, we have over 2 million people incarcerated in our system right now, and we incarcerate more people than any other country in the world, right? More than China, okay? And so we gotta ask ourselves what's going on here. It costs us roughly $70 billion a year for this incarceration, and what are we getting from it, right? I mean, sometimes incarceration is necessary, we all know that, but we all know that it has a lot of detrimental effects in our society, and we have to start asking us, you know, what changes need to be made. According to the same fact sheet, 1 in 6 people of all races will be incarcerated sometime in their life, and when it comes to African American males, 1 in 3. So I think we can all agree we've got some problems to fix, we've got some things to discuss, and I look forward to having our panel discussion share some of those issues with us and talk about their perspectives. But before we get into that discussion, there are members from the Judy Dworin Performance Project who would like to kind of sing you a few songs and talk a little bit about, that will kind of illustrate the perspective of inmates in the criminal justice system and kind of also introduce to you what they're doing in the Judy Dworin Performance Project. So I'd like to welcome them right now.
It's Saturday night. I'm a social drinking taxpayer, hiding my habits behind a white picket fence, indulging for fun, because everyone else does, because I think it's normal, because it can't happen to me. I'm shivering at the scene. On my knees in my own heart I surrender, and through the crack the light streams in. I'm still groggy, days after the crash. I pull strands of her hair from the windshield. She no longer wakes up next to me. I board the bus, shackled and chained. I judge, then forgive my sisters. Each is another myself. To the penitentiary, I'm down for 3. I surrender my summer linen suit, silk tank, matching brown underwear, nylons, beige pumps, to a rubber glove correctional officer. In exchange, she orders me to bend over, spread my butt cheeks and cough, then hands me a rough, dingy towel with the prison's initials stamped in large block letters. Before this strip search, monograms on bed sheets, bathrobes, and towels meant the items belonged to me. Now, the linens and I are property of this prison. I had imagined being herded with a bunch of other women into a large open shower room, like in the old prison movies on TV. I'm relieved to step into a single shower stall. Another officer drowns me in Quell insecticide. My hair, armpits, pubic area, nothing is left out. Disgraced, all I can do is step out and wrap the tiny towel around me. Further down, I receive a setup. Everything I'll need for my prison stay in one large, clear, plastic trash bag. I pull the paper-thin nightgown over my head, step into the oversized white cotton underpants, and wrap the brown and white striped bathrobe around me. Across the room, there's a woman, fetal position on the floor. Her face is pasted in a puddle of gloppy yellow puke. I've never seen detox before. Another woman, stripped of her pink, orange, and yellow psychedelic miniskirt, and now dressed like me. kneels down beside her and brushes her long dark hair away from the vomit. No one else helps. By midnight, we're locked up, 2 to a cell. In the darkness, through the intercom, I hear, "Cullen, this is jail, not Yale." That reality is all too clear.
Round and around she goes, where she stops, nobody knows. Round and around she goes, where she stops, nobody knows. Life taking, fate tossed from a bench to a wobbly wheel. Broken system set in stone makes prison a permanent home. So round and around she goes, where she stops, nobody knows. Round and around she goes, where she stops, nobody knows. Whirling blur out of our hands, future determined by where the ball lands. Spinning, out of control, 5, 12, 30 to life without parole. So round and around she goes, where she stops, nobody knows. Round and around she goes, where she stops, nobody knows. Random game, just a luck of the draw, sleight of hand, illusion we call justice for all. So round and around she goes, where she stops, nobody knows. Round and around she goes, where she stops, nobody knows. Round and around she goes, where she stops, nobody knows.
I feel inadequate, my dreams fermenting, diseased within me. I accept the things I cannot change and work on saving me. I march in time, banging my own drum to the beatdown of the system. This alcoholic didn't fall far from the tree, spoiling and rotting in the lies and dark shadows cast by my own family secrets. I reflect on my uncles with booze breath. In the mirror, they resemble me. My true healing begins on the inside with self-reflection and continues in the recovery rooms on the outside as I trudge 12 steps, one day at a time. I realize I'm not bad, and I'm no more sick than many who hold the keys. We do not punish people well.
Four walls, one floor, one ceiling. Four walls, one floor, one ceiling. Four walls, one floor, one ceiling. But no windows, I'm still feeling. I'm feeling perpetual loneliness, stubbornly human. Perpetual loneliness, stubbornly human. I was fragile and fractured upon my arrival. Hammered, one poke might have caused me to crumble. Images already tarnished, smudged and smeared. Ready to crack, I held out. Ready to crack, I held out. Ready to crack, I held out, and I'm reviving. I appreciate every nick, every scrape and scratch. Those blemishes from these desolate, empty walls. Today my frame may look weak, but now I am strong. Strong enough surviving the storm. Strong enough surviving the storm. Strong enough surviving the storm. Double pane and bulletproof. Four walls, one floor, one ceiling. Four walls, one floor, one ceiling. Four walls, one floor, one ceiling. But no windows, I'm still feeling. I'm feeling perpetual loneliness, stubbornly human. Perpetual loneliness, stubbornly human.
The stone steps never felt so cold beneath my feet. Staring at the twinkling August sky, I beg my eyes to stay dry, plead with my heart to stop beating so fast. Prison, prison, prison. Your mom is in prison. The words are so loud in my head, surely someone must be screaming them in my ear. I look, but I'm alone. I rise above my body and look down. Why would they leave a baby all alone outside in the dark? I scoop the infant into my arms. The baby is cold. She is scared. She is helpless. I am that baby, but I'm 12, at least. I think I'm 12. I look 12, but I feel like that baby. So cold, alone, helpless, alone. Prison, prison, prison. My mommy's in prison. I run in a panic into my room. Where is it? I scream. Rummaging through my nightstand, I pull out a picture and a handkerchief. If I could just see her, I won't forget her. I stare at her beautiful face. I bring the handkerchief up to my nose. If I could just smell her, she will be holding me. I crumble into a heap on my bed, cuddling my treasures until I fall asleep. Prison, prison, prison. Mom, you have to come back to me. I'm not finished yet. My heart isn't done growing. My soul still has a few holes in it. Finish teaching me, Mommy. What if I get sick? Who's going to hug me? And what if I get hurt? Who's going to kiss me? Can I go there with you, Mommy? Can I stay with you in prison? Don't make me go. Finish me, Mommy. Finish making me grow. I wake in my baby blue room, still dressed in my clothes, reaching for her picture, touching her face. I close my eyes and continue weeping.
If it had not been for me doing this time, tell me where would I be? Where would I be? Reaching neck to family, challenges to face, doubts and fears of failure. Every step I take, hope messages remind me the good within I find. You can look at me and see the past I left behind. If it had not been for me doing this time, tell me where would I be? Where would I be? Face to face with judgment as I take a stand. We have made it better, honesty in hand. In praises came the healing, voices lifted high. We can make a difference, I will not be denied. If it had not been for me doing this time, tell me where would I be? Where would I be? Tomorrow, I start my life tomorrow. Gonna give it a try today. Hey, so much easier to say. Tomorrow, I start my life tomorrow. Gonna give it a try today. 'Cause tomorrow, it is just a day away. The experience of coming home on that big courtroom bus, feeling hopefully afraid, confused, and unsafe, having questions of, where will I go? Will it rain or snow? Will I just walk to and fro? Is there anyone out here that can help me? If so, how will I know? Getting off that bus, everything looks so different. I feel like a total stranger in my old backyard. being thrown back into a world empty-handed to survive, feeling biologically, financially, and simply socially deprived. A plastic bag, my prison belongings, my only possessions. See, this is truly the hardest part. You're remorseful, but you're tainted. I mean, I would like to get a job, but my only clothes are from Niantic. And the question on the job applications, just the thought of it makes me frantic. Have you ever been convicted? Well, if I say yes, I've been totally honest, but then I get denied. And if I say no, I lied. So I'll get a perm and continue to believe hustling in the streets is the only place I'm welcome. I must admit, prison can be a lifesaver, but afterwards, you're labeled, tainted, doomed. Your potential is so great, but society tends to focus on that mistake. But through it all, writing got me through, because it showed my heart, my mind, my struggle, and it describes my climb. Getting to a door that finally opened because someone saw something in me. That really got me through and into a new pair of shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Hey, before you abuse, criticize and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes. If you could be me, and I could be you, for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's mind. If you could see me through your eyes instead of your ego, I believe you'd be surprised to see that you've been blind. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Hey, before you abuse, criticize and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes. And yet we spend the day throwing stones at one another. 'Cause I don't think or wear my hair same way you do. Well, I may be common people, but I'm your sister. So when you strike out and try to hurt me, it's a hurt in you. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Hey, before you abuse, criticize and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Hey, before you abuse, criticize and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes.
Very much. Had the pleasure of watching the Judy Dworin Performance Project perform quite a few shows, and it always moves me. And I thought that would be a nice way of opening up today's discussion. So I'll let the panelists introduce themselves, but what we have is we have some faculty from Tunxis Community College's Criminal Justice Department, and not only they faculty here, but they also have outside jobs I think you're going to find very interesting, but I'll let them tell you about it. And we also have women that are associated with the Judy Dworin Performance Project and also with other projects that they'll tell you about as well. So I'll begin with
Ren, why don't you begin by introducing yourself? We'll just go down the line, okay?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I'm Professor Marchand. I've been here since 2010. I'm a criminal justice instructor. I bring to the table this morning something rather unique in the system, is that I spent 25 years in a town that has a significant number of prisons within its borders. And when we talk about servicing the community, because we described ourselves as a community policing organization, I thought one of the areas that we unfortunately fell down as an organization was the fact that we failed to take care of the needs that were generated in our institutions. And unfortunately, early on in my career, you start as a patrolman and you lack the power to do anything. You have your personal convictions, but other than that, there's not much more you can bring. As I moved up in my profession, became a sergeant, a lieutenant, and then the captain, I tried to instill into the people that worked with me this sense that if we were in fact going to be a community policing organization, we had to make a commitment to service everyone within the community. I didn't think it was hard for a new officer to get the thought that if you didn't care, no one else would care. One of the things that struck me early on is that unfortunately our prisons were located centrally within our town. And whether through design or design fault, our public transportation didn't reach the prison. And fortunately for the people who were incarcerated, the only days that they didn't have visiting were very few and far between. So most of the time they were able to enjoy visits from their loved ones. But it absolutely broke my heart to see families of 2 and 3 trying to pile their way through deep driven snow, sometimes up to 2 miles away to make a visit. And one of the things, unfortunately, I tried to get across to our community is that we actually have an obligation. We have an obligation to these individuals who are making their way to the facilities so that we can help them with this journey that they're on. And I was very surprised and unfortunately often disappointed by the amount of feedback that was negative from the agencies that we would approach. For example, the Department of Transportation didn't want to bring the public buses even 2 miles up so that those visiting the prison could get off and have a shorter visit to the prison, which I thought was totally unreasonable because the path that the bus would take was straight. It was a major area. The area that they were looking to exclude wasn't a business area, so there was no true traffic that would get off between those locations. So anyway, that wasn't an example of a community that unfortunately, and the system, failing to recognize its obligations. And so as a professor here teaching criminal justice, whether it's corrections or the CJ side of it, I try to get across to each and every one of my students the need for us to be compassionate and to have a human element to what we do. When we say that we're going to be a community policing organization, when we say that we're going to protect and uphold the Constitution and protect everyone in it, we have to mean that. Not only do we have to mean it, sometimes we have to be a voice in our communities and in our organizations to say that. Sometimes it's not popular. In small organizations, there are few promotional opportunities, and if unfortunately your point of view is not the popular point of view, unfortunately it may very well, for a short duration, affect your promotional opportunities. But one of the things I've been struck significantly from working here at Tunxis is that the students I've had the pleasure of working with have truly greatness in them. We hear this expression all the time, we need a new thin blue line out there. When I look into the audience and I see my criminal justice students, I say to them often, there's greatness in this room. And if we get together and we work to solve problems collectively, we'll be better off for that. So thank you.
Good morning. My name is Esther Torres, and I worked for the Department of Corrections for about 25 years. And much like Ren, I worked my way up the ranks from counselor, counselor supervisor, major, deputy warden, and ultimately the director of program treatment. And I too saw a lot working on the line. Did that help? And I saw a lot, and again, I didn't have a voice, or my voice was not heard. Maybe that didn't help. But as I moved along and became more known and visible in the department, maybe it's my body language and all this energy going on.
My suggestion is maybe
Sitting down?
everybody should sit down and just speak into the microphone, just pull it towards you, because that, I don't know why. The feedback is awful. Yeah. Can you hear me? Can
you hear me now? All right, much better. I too found that I was able to make small changes and recommendations in how we treated the offender. But it wasn't until I became a warden that I had the impact, or I was really able to make change that benefited not only the inmates, but their families as well. And I really want to take time out to thank these ladies. They did a wonderful job. And I was truly moved because that could be me, or that could be you. And that was one of the messages that I always gave all my new rookie staff coming into the department. I met with each and every one of them, and I know that maybe on one or two occasions I my foot might have gotten a little heavy on the pedal and I went over the speed limit. I know that maybe I had 2 glasses of wine instead of the 1. I know that there were instances that I may have been borderlining our loss. And that could have been me, or that could have been one of my family members. And that's how I wanted them to treat the inmates. They're here, they were sentenced, they were already judged by the judge. That wasn't our job. Our job was to find them and make sure that their safety and our safety were intact. That was about it. But when they were talking about, I think they didn't, I have more energy than Ben here.
I'm gonna go get the extra people. I don't know exactly.
But when I was listening to them and their stories, I remembered all those stories. I remembered watching the inmates coming in through the AMP and the process and putting all their street clothes in a bag and getting a receipt for it and then just getting their prison clothes, and that was their identity. They were no longer John Doe or Jane Doe. They were inmate number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's how you refer to them. And I mean, that's in place for a reason, and it works for us, but there were people too. So I really feel identified with what you're doing it, saying, and how you were sharing your experiences, because I was able to see the other side of that. And we helped a little bit in terms of when the kids would visit, we started reading programs so the fathers could read to the children, and we would have coloring books and crayons and different activities other than just having them sit in a table across from each other, give one kiss at the beginning of the visit and one kiss at the end of the visit, and that really would be the extent of the contact we had. So hopefully in time we'll be able to make more changes, but as the professor said, more changes need to happen, and that needs to come from the community, from legislators, and people, students such as yourself. You are our teacher when it comes to what happens in our community. You will make that change.
test this mic. Can everybody hear me? I am Jessica Waterhouse. I am the program coordinator of the Criminal Justice Program, and I am very happy to see so many students coming today. I know a lot of you are in my program, and that's one thing that I would like to stress about the Criminal Justice Program. When you graduate here from Tunxis with a CJ degree, I want you to have the experiences, not just from a law enforcement side, not just the correction side. I want you to have the full experience. I want you to be able to say, yes, I've met someone that has been incarcerated, or I've toured a prison, or I've gone on a ride along. I don't want just textbook knowledge. I want you to have your own experiences, and that's one of the reasons why days like this is very important, is to get an understanding, get an experience, and talk to people. I'll be moderating this panel after the rest of the panelists introduce themselves and have a little discussion. I would like to open this up for questions.
Hi, I'm Judy Dworin, and I'm the Executive Artistic Director of the Judy Dworin Performance Project. I also teach at Trinity College in Hartford. And 10 years ago, I walked into York CI with the idea of doing a performance residency with the women there. It was kind of coincidental that I ended up going, and the first day that I went kind of changed my life. I sat with 8 women and talked about the theme of time and how they reflected upon time being in prison. And that was the idea of the piece that we were going to develop together. And I realized as we talked, and also as I heard the length of the sentences that they all had, and the amount of time they'd served and the amount of time that they needed to serve, and also that every preconceived idea that I had about who was in prison melted away as the conversation went on. And I realized that I can't just walk in and out of this place. I really need to stay here for the long haul, because there's something here that needs to be heard by other people. And very few of us get to go behind those the razor wire and also walk out every time, and are able to share whatever awarenesses come about from that experience. And so from that point on, it's really been a very important part of my nonprofit to educate and bring awareness, as well as to continue working with the women there. We also have a moms and kids program there where they can interact with their moms. The children can come and interact with their moms and dance and do artwork and not be behind that table for that short time, and a kiss at the beginning and a kiss at the end. And so from there we've gone on to work with kids outside who have parents in prison and who keep that as a tightly kept secret. Suzi, who presented, was one of the people that we met through working with her mom at York, and she's now a teaching artist with us and is performing with us. So, and most recently we've started a program working with women who we worked with at the prison now that they're out, and bringing awareness through performance work. So the selections that you saw today were from a piece called In My Shoes, which we performed at Hartford Stage earlier this year to a completely sold out house, and then went on to perform at Infinity Music Hall and Bistro in Hartford to an almost sold out house. So about almost 750 people saw the whole piece, and it really had to start to think in a different way, I think, or to have their story affirmed, because we had many people who'd gone through the experience who were able to come and see it. So it's great to be here. We did the piece as a work in progress last year at Tunxis, so it's kind of where the piece had its birth, and it's really nice to come back here again. Thank you, Patrice, for arranging all of this, and so that we could share again with you part of the journey and have you become part of it as well.
Good morning. I'm Robin Cullen, and I've been working with Judy for, I know it's more than 10 years now. I've been out of Niantic since 2000. I had spent 3 years for a DUI, manslaughter, driving while intoxicated, and went into prison with preconceived notions like we all might have. And my eyes were wide open to the social issues that we have. It's an honor to work with Judy and among my sisters, and grateful to be here this morning because one of our greatest resources to change are folks who are in your shoes, because you have your future ahead of you and the ability to help us change minds because you come here with open minds. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
I've been told that the back rows can't hear very well, so if you could, I have the microphones turned up as loud as I could, if you could just try to project a little bit, because I guess the back rows are having a difficult time hearing. Thank you.
Okay, hi, my name is Rowena
Perfect.
Grady. I've been working with Judy going on 2 years. I've been out of York since 2004 for possession of narcotics twice, and trespassing probably 5 or 6 or 7 times. Now I am residential coordinator for Community Partners in Action, working with women coming out of prison, moving back into the community.
Hi, my name is Suzi Jensen. I am a teaching artist with the Judy Dworin Performance Project, and I have been dealing with my mother's incarceration for approximately 20 years. She was in prison twice, and I think that oftentimes people don't look at everybody who's affected by incarceration, and children are those people that end up falling through the cracks. And I think through our programming, we're trying to reach as many children as we can and to help them and their moms and their whole family dynamic itself.
Good morning. My name is Leslie Bird, and I'm also a teaching artist with the Judy Dworin Performance Project, but I'm also a musical facilitator and director with Women on Our Own, which is a singing group of women who were previously in prison. And they have talents, they are artists in and of themselves, they're out working and living their lives, their transformed lives. And I think that that message of hope is going out through the performances that we do and will continue to do. Thank you.
Okay, one thing that I would like to come across, over the last 10 years I've been here at Tunxis, I have taken groups of students to facilities, to tour facilities, and I actually volunteered at Hartford Correctional for 7 months. And one thing that I've learned talking to inmates, and they, excuse me, they repeated several times, it's one decision that's the difference between where you're sitting and where I'm sitting. So I do want you to think about that. The decisions that we all make are very important. What I'd like to do at this time is take questions from the audience. You can ask any of the panel members, and this is just an opportunity for you. So I do have the microphone, and I'm going to walk around, so if you have a question, just raise your hand, and I'll bring the mic to you.
And don't raise them all at the same time. You can't walk that back.
And I do know many of you are my students, so I expect questions. Okay, thank you.
I don't have much of a voice right now, though. I'm writing a paper for my class for Russell Hamilton's justice system, and I asked my boyfriend, because he was incarcerated in Cheshire, about the jobs and everything, like trying to get a job after. I know you mentioned it. How long did it take you to get one until you actually found a job, if you did?
Oh, well, it took about, to get a job that was not under the table, it took about, let me see, probably 6 years.
I was gonna, cause every time he found, like general labor, and he was incarcerated like a bunch of times because he just kept going back to what he would do because he looked at it as judgmental. So I just wanted to get your view as like a female from his perspective as a male in the situation.
Well, I also have 2 brothers that were affected by the criminal justice system, so I will say that it's the same, probably a little harder for men. I probably could have perhaps gotten gotten a job earlier. But because I knew how to do hair, I was able to, you know, survive off of just selling myself, you know, selling my talent for doing hair. And being able to, you know, earn money doing that. However, for my brothers, one of them has not had a job in, I don't even remember when, but I do recall him consistently looking and trying and going back to school and going into deeper and deeper and deeper debt, trying to educate himself, trying to qualify himself for what employers are looking for. And finally, in my position that I work in now, women come out and, you know, sometimes they get a job, but it's not a job that can help them to, you know, be able to afford a rent, or, you know, it's just not a position where you want to be in spite of the education and, you know, the merit that they have prior to going to jail. Prison like really stagnates the process, and it's a problem because a lot of times people are really, really ready to move forward and really don't want to go back to jail. However, sometimes you're pushed into a corner to do things that you really didn't want to do because you just need to survive.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Hello, I guess this question would be for Esther, or, I'm sorry, I can't see the name, Renald. How difficult is it in the state of Connecticut to get your record either sealed or expunged from narcotic charges, and how long is the normal wait?
Well, I'm not sure about expunging for narcotics, but it would, a pardon would help. Okay. Oh, yeah, he's here. Give it a shot. So you would request a pardon to the governor's office, and it's an application process. And the decision will generally, you have to be crime-free, I believe, 10 years? 10 years, free of crime, before you could even apply. So, and you could get a pardon where those charges would be, you would no longer be considered valid.
Interesting question that you have there, because if you've been reading the newspaper, our current governor is looking at drastically reducing the number of inmates we have in our system by releasing inmates who have been arrested and incarcerated for minor drug offenses. So I think several things. One would be, if you are currently holding a past drug arrest, I think much like our tolerance for people to now utilize marijuana as an acceptable substance, I think convictions for minor drug violations aren't going to be a significant problem in the criminal justice system. There are certain benchmarks. Obviously, you cannot have a conviction of a felony, but I think for most drug offenses, it's patience and time will probably take care of that.
And if I could add to that, the probability of that happening in Connecticut is very high. Massachusetts already passed a law like that. If you are convicted of a drug offense and you haven't had any crime for 5 years, they would actually give you a pardon, because it's impossible to get a good job. And I was sharing that with Judy and the ladies earlier, that you commit one mistake, and Ms. Waterhouse referred to that it's one decision. You make one bad decision, and you're going to pay for it the rest of your life. It's just not the 5 and 10 the judge gives you. So the states are realizing that, and they are looking to move forward in that area. So hopefully Connecticut will follow suit.
My question's for Professor Torres. I'm currently enrolled in your online class for community-based corrections, and with a huge interest in correction myself, after reading the textbook a couple times, and also have probation with policy class with Mike Rafferty. Just think about it. Because you were warden, has prisons ever had more of a credit system in order to get out? Because I understand that reinstituting an inmate back into society is not easy, especially when they have like communication skills or work, finding jobs and stuff like that. Has there been a time where you guys tried to make like certain programs be done by the time they are released?
Actually,
Like a credit
they are,
system?
the jail credit system just came back into play after being, thank you so much. They just reinstituted the jail credits, and they do get time off their sentence for completing certain programs. So that is back in effect, and they are working a lot now, and it's just not one institution or the minimum security institutions. Now they're trying to bring it to the level 3s as well, which is where inmates are serving more time. And they're doing what they're called the reentry initiatives, and they do everything from resume writing to surfing the internet for jobs, role-playing job interviews, drug programs, social skills. I mean, they're really building upon making the inmate better prepared to come out into the community.
And how strict is that? Because I understand that there are some inmates that don't want any part of any program. They're just servicing.
They have to want it, yes. But they won't get jail credit if they don't partake in it. So it's the carrot that's dangling, in front of them. And some inmates aren't going to partake in it. But you cannot have any disciplinary reports, so you have to have good behavior as part of that as well. So if you're going to get a ticket or you're going to misbehave, you're not going to be part of that process until they clear.
Well, in that case, last question would be, since for those inmates who act up or misbehave that are not allowed to do the program, has there been any programs instituted to not rehabilitate but change them to understand that you need to behave and do better for yourself, and then reintroduce them to the general population and stuff like that?
So inmates that are like in administrative segregation, you mean?
Correct.
Yes, there are programs there specifically designed that are cognitive and behavioral. Yes.
I was just going to ask Robin or Rowena, what type of programs were you aware of when you were there, and do you think they were beneficial?
I currently do a program, a facilitator program at York with the women called Healing Trauma. And I facilitate that group in a building that is what they're using now as the re-entry building. And we go once a week on Friday morning and maybe serve a dozen women. And we are the only program in that building. The women watch out the window waiting for us because there's nothing else happening. And so there's a misconception that there's a lot of programming and a lot of rehabilitation going on. I know that the state of Connecticut right now is in the process of looking at the system and looking at the programming, but the reality is that there are about 17,000 men and over 1,000 women who have barely enough programs. And I can speak on my experience. I went to Niantic for alcohol-related fatality, and it was 9 months before I got to any program at all to address my alcohol issues. They have online this long list of programs that each facility has listed by their name, but it's every program that's ever walked into the institution, whether it's still in progress or not. And so there's not a lot going on. There are many, many people who want programming, they want to do things, And the system, once we get inside, sometimes something could happen and a CO won't let a woman out of a room to get to a program, or they didn't hear it called over the intercom. And so there's a lot of, there are a lot of barriers to people actually getting to the chair in a room where there's help available. And so there's, you know, there are so many areas where there are barriers to wellness, and so many areas that we need to improve on as a society. Volunteers getting into the prison. I run across people all the time, how can I get in there? I'll go in and I'll do AA, I'll do. The process for someone to get inside to be a volunteer is horrific. And it doesn't even mean that if you're scheduled for that day that you'll actually get in the prison that day. So there's a lot going on, and I don't want to bash DOC, I'm just talking about a broken system. And so we have all these things that are supposed to be happening and things that we, you know, think are instated, but the system isn't a well-oiled machine. It has a lot of broken pieces to it, and so it doesn't operate smoothly, and so the people who are incarcerated aren't getting what they need, whether it's medical, mental health, programming for substance abuse, whatever the programming might be. And so the waiting lists to get into an actual program are unbelievable. We have probably 40 or 50 women in the facility on a list waiting to get into our program. But when we actually show up to do it, 4 or 5 women are in the room because nobody could get out of their unit. And so these are just some of the problems that people face. And so looking at it as a big picture is really necessary so that the little things that aren't working can be fixed so that people get what they need. And that will help when people get out. I mean, reentry is, I could talk another 5 hours about that. But just the things that are going on inside the prison could be so improved upon by just having some communication that makes it work smoother within the facility.
Yeah, well, for me, like she said, they service around 12 women. But let's think of how many people are gonna come out this year. So, it's not open to everyone who's gonna need it. And furthermore, for me, like she said, it took her 9 months to even get into the first one. Is that what you said? Right. So it's like, if you have a 1-year sentence, what you did is really gonna be problematic when you come out. So not being able to get services immediately to start working on whatever your issues are, or, you know, help you to, you know, change your way of thinking or get on a new path, it's just not possible if you, for example, have 1 year. And lastly, the things that are open to all of the inmates, they might call it. She said that there's a list online. Who's gonna see that from inside of all the services that you can go to? Sometimes it's just the information of what's available in the prison. The inmates just don't know. And also, the ones that are open to everyone, there's like, in the unit, there'll be like, you know, the first 6 on the list can go. And it's like, some people, you know, can run faster, some people are, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just not.
And just one more thing on that. The other thing is, people might not be aware of the actual level of education. When I was at York, was from 97 to 2000. The average level of education was about 4th grade among the women. So we're talking about over 1,000 women, many of whom have not even reached a 5th grade level of education. And so they're not able to communicate. Many can't write a request. There are many non-English speaking people. And so there are so many barriers to actually getting to a program that people just do the time and get out, thinking that when they get out, then they'll take care of stuff, and then the services aren't available then. So the re-entry piece should start the day someone enters the facility, not 8 days away from being released if there even is a service available. And so there are some initiatives right now. I know the governor has a second chance program. Things are being looked at, but we need, it's just, you know, the needs of folks to actually change the way they've been living their whole lives is more than an 8-week program once a week if you can get there. The needs are across the board. You know, they're family-wide, generational issues that need to be dealt with. And so, as a society, this system needs to be reworked in so many ways so that we address the whole family, not just the person who's incarcerated, so that we address the whole system before, during, and after incarceration. So that, you know, there's just such a big picture thing going on here that's more than just getting a program for somebody. It's about life changes, it's about social movement, so that we don't have these systems that are punitive rather than rehabilitative. So, you know, there's a whole lot going on here, and so if you're interested in, you know, the social issues, the correction, there's so much work to be done. And as a society, we could just do this so much better if we'd get to talking about what really needs to be happening. And so today is one of those things that lets people in to see behind the wall where, you know, not many people, like Judy said, ever get a view of behind the wall.
I just want to add to that, and I spoke with Judy earlier, that women in corrections, and for those of you that have been in my class, it's only been in the last few decades that they really even viewed women as someone to incarcerate, you know, to actually sentence to an incarceration, because they really didn't know what to do with women when it came to crime and jail. And so York is still, you know, a work in progress. You know, women still were an afterthought. As simple as things as what can they wear? What could be considered contraband for a woman? Well, of course a man's not going to wear a bra, but women need these underclothes, you know, that are different from men. And just simple things like that were debated on, you know, just a few decades ago. You know, and we're talking about like an era where I can do absolutely everything with this little machine that I have in my hand, and we're still talking about what women can and cannot have as necessary items. And you know, when it comes to reentry, it is something that has to be looked at from the minute that they come in. But we also know that resources are limited. You know, and the first thing that gets cut when we have a budget crisis is what? Programs. We can't cut the officers because they are there to maintain public safety. They are there, they have to be 24/7. The first thing that gets cut is always programs. And we do need to get a better volunteer system. I was just talking to Ms. Waterhouse about that. I don't know, maybe I'll come back and volunteer and do something with that and renovate that area, because we can, I mean, if you look at this room, everybody except for the middle people, the people in the middle row could be incarcerated. You know, if you look at the statistics that we talked about earlier, everybody in this room except for you guys in the middle could actually be potential inmates. So we really do need to invest our money more wisely. We need to look at our programs better. And if I, as an administrator, look at somebody who's doing 5 years, should I give him or her programming now, or do I do it right before he gets out in the street? Those are decisions that you have to make. And unfortunately, up until recently, those were the decisions we made, that we would give the programming, the most programming to the people at the end of the sentence so that they could retain it and have that information when, you know, they were ready to hit the streets. But, you know, money is an issue, policy is an issue, and laws are an issue. So, yes, we're definitely a broken system, and it's not just corrections. Like I said, it's, you know, the whole system, families, Department of Children and Families, our law enforcement. There's just a lot that needs to be done, but it's, you know, again, our future.
And I'm just going to add a little bit to that. I think it's a question of when it comes to a question of money, then looking at whether resources can be reallocated. How are we spending our money? And do we need that many correction officers? Do so many people need to be in prison? Can we let people that are in prison that maybe could get help outside of prison, be outside of prison? I think part of the reason that change is going to happen is because the financial situation is such that we're looking to cut costs, and maybe that's for not the best reason, but maybe it's the reason that everybody's going to listen to. And then it seems really important to look at the broad base, how it's all being allocated, and is there a way to, as we reconceive what it needs to be or what it should be, that some of those resources get, so that programs aren't the ones that are cut. Because actually I think that programs are the lifesaver of the people that are in prison. And they are going to be, the people that can take advantage of programs are going to be the people that will walk out differently and will have hopefully a different experience when they do, because our community is going to also welcome them in a way that it presently doesn't.
This question is for Judy. I was just wondering, it sounds like it's pretty hard to get a program started. How did you go about implementing what you've accomplished?
There's somebody who works at the prison now but is retiring, who is a self-appointed arts coordinator at the prison but is actually the librarian and media services person there. And he has really facilitated many programs at York. And so when we had the idea of doing something at York, we talked to him. His name is Joe Lee, and he facilitated our applying to the school. We were going to be a program in the school. We were initially denied because the thought was there was a dance company who came in for a 2-week residency, and so the dance was taken care of. And so we had to work around that, and we became part of an after-school program. We also weren't just doing dance; we were doing a multi-arts approach to the work. And I think that one of the things in going into prison is that there is a suspicion about, and I think a well-founded one, of who you are and why you were there and what your goals are. And I think that it's important to work with the DOC staff and to let them trust that you will abide by the rules and you get it, but you also have something that you want to share that maybe goes beyond what's already there. And I think that you're working hand in hand all the time with the correctional staff there and the administration. And I think one of the things that we did was we really tried to make sure that they understood that we weren't trying to walk another line, we were trying to walk within the line, but also to bring something important. And I think they could see that it was important. There were some key people that were on the administration that really began to see the difference that it made for the women and began to open the door a little bit wider each time. So I think that there has to be a really respectful way of approaching the work, and knowing that it's going to be difficult. And one step at a time, we've been able to, for instance, the women, when they perform at York, we are able to bring in tie-dye t-shirts, and they have the women put in designs, and we choose a design, and that design goes on. And then we've been given permission after they do the performances to take those t-shirts and wash them and send them out to their families. So that was huge. And so it's just going one step at a time. I think that on the one hand, we can see a vision of how the system should completely change. And I think, and then there's the other, that while it's never gonna, that's not gonna happen overnight, that's gonna take years. And so what can each of us do one step at a time? And so Moms and Kids started out as a Saturday morning. Now it's a full weekend where families can engage with women can engage with their families and children for a whole weekend. That's so huge. So it's kind of seeing how you can most effectively work within the system. And then those of you that are not working in the system, be advocates for the change that needs to happen. We can't do both. I'm working within it, and I'm very respectful of the fact that I can be there. I consider it a privilege that I can be inside those walls and I can do what I can do. So, but those of you that can see and hear what's voiced, you can start to advocate on the outside for the change, and it will happen. It has to happen. But and we can all do our share.
My name is Davis. I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I think it's very commendable, and I think it's wonderful, all of you, to be together in a forum like this. My feeling is, reality is that prisons were designed to keep people in, to keep the public out. Prisons are undesigned for rehabilitation, they're designed for punishment. We need to work on prevention out here. We need to work on how we receive people who are coming back out. Because if the public and society does not buy into treating and developing programs and resources for people who are coming out, what happens inside is not going to make a hell of a difference. So, we need to work on 3 things. Prevention, how we receive people, and having that work in conjunction with what's going on inside of our joints. We need to be more open. We need to understand that it's more cost effective to have people who are coming out. And the ripple effect of all the victims, not only the people who are going inside, but who's left behind? Who's left behind? What happens to the communities? What happens to that family? The woman who goes in and has to leave her children. The man who goes in and look at what we've done to our prisons. We've put them way out there so that it makes it almost impossible for people to visit. Somebody who wants to visit somebody who lives in Bridgeport and they want to go up north. I mean, what does it take? It's an all-day process. If you have a job, right? If you have to try to get transportation. So we need to focus on the things that we can do to work in prevention and work on how we reintegrate people coming back into our society. And then maybe with that conjunction, we'll have an opportunity to change that culture inside of our joints.
And I would like to add perception too, to that. You know, the public perception is that it's all okay if it's not in my backyard, but if it's in my backyard, I don't want you coming back to my backyard. So the public perception of how they view an inmate coming out is huge in terms of the release process.
Okay, my question is, what is the positive outlook for these inmates coming out of prison? What can y'all do to help them not to be a repeat offender? Like for jobs and stuff. That's the most important thing. When they come out, they need a job. The programs y'all have inside, why y'all don't have the programs outside to help these inmates to not be a repeat offender? What funds? You know, to give them work when they come out. I know y'all have different programs inside. Is it true y'all make license plates and things like that inside prison? Why they don't have these same kind of working programs out? So when they come out, they go straight into a job that is funded and with security and overlook them.
Our mission in the Department of Correction it is within the Department of Correction. We really don't have, our mission does not extend into the community to find jobs, but we are trying we bring in job fairs into the prisons, and I'm not sure they do that in the female facility or not, but they do that in the male facility. So we bring employers in to meet our inmates, but we really don't have any jurisdiction over, you know, the jobs or the employers in the community.
But they should spend it out to the community, though.
I'm sorry?
I say they should extend these programs out in the community, because a lot of people won't hire them.
I agree.
So they should extend it out. These same people who come into prison, ask them what they're going to do for them when they get out. You know, will they extend the same thing they offer while they're in?
Well, we do that. That is done.
Okay.
But better networking clearly has to happen. But our mission really kind of stops at the fence, exactly.
We have time for one or two more questions.
I'm sorry, could I just say one more thing? I do think that you're completely right, and one of the things that we are trying to do is we don't only provide the program in the prison, but this work that you're seeing is all paid. So that we've applied, none of this is funded by anybody but the grants that we get, so it's all grant funded. But it does allow women that have had this work inside to know that when they get out, they can still do this work, and they can also they can't earn a living on it by any means. Most artists can't anyway, but they can. It gives them a job on their resume that they can say, this is something that I did and got paid for, and I can write a letter of recommendation for any one of them, and it can be as full and positive as it should be, as it's deserved to be. So I think that kind of thing is, that way of thinking is a forward way to think, not, that you're bringing up, and something that, is something to think about for the future.
Do y'all still have halfway houses for them?
There are halfway houses. I work for a work release program, and these men are still considered Department of Correction property, if you will. And the manager of the program, he does have community links of people that he knows will hire these men. So when they come out, they get jobs really quick, and some of the jobs are well-paying jobs. However, once you are at the end of sentence, the Department of Correction cuts all ties. They don't care what happens to you after your sentence is completely over. And we find that same problem at my job. Once a person reaches end of sentence and their parole is over, the Department of Correction, who funds our agency, they don't, you're unable to say, that any of the funds went towards anything to help this person. If they found an apartment, we can't pay the security deposit for them, which we can do for a person who is still on parole. So it's almost like once you're no longer DOC, the Department of Correction is hands off.
Hello, my name is Andrew, and this is more for Esther and Renald. I was wondering, we haven't really talked about judges. Judges are elected in our society. Why is that? Shouldn't they be above public opinion to produce more fair sentences for offenders?
Actually, in the state of Connecticut, we don't elect our judges. We're one of the few states that does not have that system. However, I can certainly, looking at the system of electing the judge from the outside inwardly, I can see clearly there are problems with a system like that, because judges are then sensitive to the public opinion that happens to be in flavor that week, should they be up for re-election. And statistically, it's shown that most judges, come election time, morph into a law and order judge compared to a compassionate, socially aware person dispensing justice. So clearly, if we are to look as a society possibly changing some of the things within our criminal justice system, we need to look at how we appoint judges and what the judge's role truly is. You can't exclude a judge's passion to move on. Local judges dream about becoming federal judges. Federal judges one day dream about becoming Supreme Court justices. It's the way the system is. And there are certain parameters that encourage certain selections in the process. So I think we do have a problem when we choose to elect our judges, and unfortunately that's the system most of the states have. Before I hand the microphone back over, I'm always a nervous person, and I did not get a chance to thank you for coming today. I was absolutely thrilled that you're here, and your performance was spectacular. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to thank everybody for attending today, and especially our panel guests. I'd like to give them a round of applause. If you have any other questions, you can come up and ask the panel themselves.